Megalodon didn't die peacefully. Something walked into its ocean, ate its food, and let it starve. That thing is still alive. You've seen it. You've maybe even swum near one. By the end of this video, you're going to look at it very differently. Before we get there, we need to talk about what Megalodon actually was. Because almost everything the movies got right about the size, they got wrong about the animal. And the animal is far more disturbing than the fiction. Otodus Megalodon, pronounced Otodus Megalodon, was not a great white shark that grew too big. Calling it a great white is like calling a semi-truck an oversized minivan. They share a shape, almost nothing else. Megalodon belonged to a completely separate line of sharks called Otodontids, a family that had been swimming the oceans for tens of millions of years before Megalodon showed up. By the time it did, around 23 million years ago, its ancestors had already been refining the blueprint since the age of the dinosaurs was still cooling off in the rocks. At its full size, Megalodon reached somewhere between 50 and 60 feet long. Some estimates push closer to 65. That's longer than 2 school buses parked bumper to bumper. It weighed around 50 to 70 tons. For comparison, a fully loaded commercial airliner at takeoff weighs about 80 tons. This animal was moving through the ocean at nearly the weight of a Boeing 737, and it was accelerating. Its teeth grew over 7 inches long, longer than a standard kitchen knife. There were hundreds of them, arranged in rows that rotated forward like a conveyor belt, replacing themselves throughout the shark's life. Paleontologists have pulled these teeth out of sediments on almost every continent. You can find them on beaches in South Carolina, Florida, and North Carolina after a big storm. Kids find them. Retirees find them. They wash up like seashells. Every single one of those teeth was once inside the mouth of an animal that could bite a whale in half. The bite force is where the numbers stop making sense. Megalodon bit down with an estimated 40,000 pounds of force. A saltwater crocodile, the strongest biter alive today, manages about 3,700. Great whites bite at around 4,000. T-Rex, the standard for terrestrial bite force, hit around 12,800. Megalodon tripled T-Rex. It quadrupled a great white. It bit like a hydraulic press the size of a small car, and it did it underwater, on prey that was fighting back. This is where everything reframes. Megalodon wasn't hunting fish. It was hunting whales. That's what it evolved for. Fossil evidence, specifically bite marks on Miocene whale bones, tells us Megalodon targeted the ribcage. It went for the internal organs. It didn't chase down small, agile prey. It ambushed animals the size of buses, disabled them in one strike, and let them bleed out. Some whale fossils from the Miocene show tooth marks across the base of the flippers, which suggests Megalodon was cutting off their ability to swim before finishing the kill. This is calculated violence. This is a predator that had figured out anatomy. The sensory setup matched the strategy. Like all sharks, Megalodon carried a network of electrical receptors around its snout called the ampullae of Lorenzini, pronounced ampullae of Lorenzini. These are jelly-filled pores that detect the electrical fields given off by the muscle contractions of every living thing in the water. A whale swimming a quarter-mile away wasn't hidden. Its heartbeat was a signal, combined with a sense of smell that could track a single drop of blood across a football field of open water, and eyes tuned for low-light ambush. Megalodon didn't need to see its prey to find it. The whale was broadcasting its own location, whether it knew it or not. For 20 million years, Megalodon ran every ocean on Earth. From the coasts of what's now California to the shores of what's now Peru. From the Mediterranean to the coasts of Australia and Japan, its teeth appear in the fossil record. It wasn't a regional predator, it was a global one. It ruled the tropics and pushed into cooler waters. It was, without exaggeration, the most successful macro-predator the oceans have ever produced. Around 3.6 million years ago, it stopped existing. No trauma, no asteroid, no sudden volcanic catastrophe. The fossil record just thins out. Teeth become rarer, then absent. One of the most successful predators in Earth's history simply faded from the ocean, and paleontologists spent decades arguing about why. The old theories didn't hold up. Climate change was blamed for a while. The Earth was cooling during the Pliocene, and as ocean temperatures dropped, Megalodon's tropical hunting grounds shrank. But Megalodon lived across a range of temperatures. Some populations were adapted to cooler waters. Cooling alone doesn't explain a global disappearance. Researchers looked at the whales next. Megalodon's prey base was shifting. Small and medium-sized whales, exactly the size class Megalodon depended on, were becoming less common. Larger baleen whales were evolving. Blue whales, humpbacks, the ancestors of the giants alive today. They were getting bigger, faster, and migrating into deeper, colder waters that Megalodon couldn't easily follow. That was part of it. It wasn't all of it. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. During the exact same window that Megalodon was disappearing, another predator was expanding. Something smaller, faster, smarter, and traveling in coordinated groups. Something that ate the same food, targeted the same prey, and had one advantage Megalodon never developed: a brain. Enter the ancestor of the modern orca, the killer whale, Orcanus orca, pronounced Orcinus or Ku. A clarification first, because the science here matters. Paleontologists don't claim orcas killed Megalodon directly, one-on-one. There's no fossil showing a Megalodon with orca bite marks. What the evidence suggests is more insidious. The rise of large, socially coordinated cetaceans, the group that includes orcas and their close relatives, coincides with Megalodon's decline in a way that's hard to ignore. Multiple studies looking at tooth chemistry, geographic overlap, and ecological modeling have arrived at similar conclusions. Ancestral orcas, or animals very much like them, were competing with Megalodon for the same food, and they were winning. The tooth chemistry work is worth pausing on because it's the closest thing paleontology has to a fingerprint. Researchers analyzed zinc isotopes in Megalodon teeth from different periods and compared them to teeth from ancestral great whites and early orca relatives. The isotope ratios tell you where in the food chain an animal was feeding. What the numbers show is a startling amount of overlap. By the late Miocene, Megalodon wasn't dining alone at the top of the ocean. It was sharing a table with animals that ate the same things, and the table wasn't getting any bigger. Think about what that means. For over 20 million years, Megalodon was the apex. Nothing challenged it, nothing hunted it. Then something showed up that could think faster than it could bite. Orcas hunt in pods. They communicate, they plan. Modern orcas have been documented working together to flip great white sharks upside down, inducing a state called tonic immobility, which paralyzes the shark. They then eat the shark's liver, which is huge, energy-rich, and easy to access. Off the coast of South Africa, this behavior has driven great whites out of entire regions. Great whites, the closest modern analog to what Megalodon was, are being systematically bullied out of their hunting grounds by animals a fraction of their size working together. Scale that up. A pod of proto-orcas working the same ocean as a solitary Megalodon didn't need to kill an adult in a fair fight. Nothing could. They just had to outcompete it. Eat the same whales, faster, hunt the same waters in numbers, displace it from productive territory, starve its young. A solitary predator, no matter how large, cannot compete with a pack of coordinated hunters that are eating its lunch every day for 1 million years. That's what happened. Megalodon didn't lose a battle. It lost an ecosystem. There's more. Young Megalodon, the juveniles, needed nurseries. Warm, shallow coastal waters where they could grow up before venturing into open ocean. Fossil sites in Panama, Maryland, and Spain have been identified as ancient Megalodon nurseries. These same waters were becoming increasingly patrolled by the ancestors of modern great whites and by cetaceans. A juvenile Megalodon at 15 or 20 feet long is still enormous, but it's not the invincible predator its parents were. It's edible, and if the nurseries collapse, the population collapses within a few generations. Hold on to that, because it changes how we think about who really killed Megalodon. It wasn't the adult that got hunted, it was the baby. Some of you are already thinking the obvious question. If orcas are the descendants of what pushed Megalodon out and orcas are alive, then technically the thing that killed Megalodon is still swimming in every ocean on Earth. That's true. It's more literal than that. The line of cetaceans that outcompeted Megalodon didn't just survive, it expanded. It became the dominant predatory lineage of the modern oceans. Modern orcas are, in a very real evolutionary sense, the descendants of the animals that ended one of the greatest predators in Earth's history. They outthought it, then they kept going. Then, modern orcas eat great white sharks. They eat blue whales, the largest animals that have ever existed, larger than any dinosaur. They have been observed drowning them, one pod against one whale, over the course of hours. They eat moose swimming between islands off the coast of British Columbia. They have specialized ecotypes. Some populations only eat fish, others only eat mammals, others only eat sharks. The mammal-hunting populations have been observed teaching their young to intentionally beach themselves to grab seals off Argentine shorelines. They come back off the beach on purpose. That's not instinct. That's transmitted knowledge. An orca brain is the second largest of any animal alive today, behind only the sperm whale. The section of the brain associated with emotion and social complexity is proportionally larger than a human's. They have culture. Different pods speak different dialects. Their calls pass down through generations. A young orca learns hunting techniques from its mother, the way a young human learns to drive from a parent. This is the animal that ended Megalodon. There's a chilling parallel here that shouldn't get lost. The story of Megalodon versus the ancestors of the orca is the story of a purely physical predator being displaced by an intelligent one. Raw power lost to social coordination, size lost to strategy. That same pattern has played out over and over again in the history of life. Saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, cave bears. The biggest, strongest, most specialized predators tend to fall. The clever ones survive. The clever ones eat. You can see the end game of that pattern by looking in a mirror. Pull back to the water for a moment because I want you to stand in it. Imagine you're swimming in a warm Pliocene sea, roughly 4 million years ago, somewhere off the coast of what's now Florida. The water is clear blue and about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see the sandy bottom 40 feet below you. A shadow passes overhead, long, slow, deliberate, 55 feet from nose to tail. That's Megalodon, and it's not interested in you. You're too small to bother with. It's cruising toward a pod of small whales grazing on a shallow bank. Now imagine something else moving in from the deep water. 12 of them, black and white, moving in a formation. They're each maybe 20 feet long. Together they weigh less than that one Megalodon. But they've been tracking the same pod of whales for 6 hours, and they've hunted this water before. Megalodon doesn't know what a coordinated attack looks like. Megalodon has never lost a fight. Megalodon has ruled this ocean for millions of years. The orcas don't attack it. They don't have to. They surge past it, cut the whale pod off from open water, and take one of the calves in under 2 minutes. Megalodon watches its lunch swim away in the mouths of animals a fraction of its size. Then Megalodon has to hunt something else. And when it finds that something else, the orcas will be there too. Every day, for the rest of its species' existence. That's how it ended. Not with an asteroid, not with an extinction event, with patience. We know this pattern because we can watch it happening now. Off the South African coast, in a region called False Bay, great white sharks used to be a permanent fixture. Then, starting around 2015, two male orcas, nicknamed Port and Starboard by researchers, began systematically hunting them. The orcas would flip the sharks, extract the livers with surgical precision, and leave the rest of the carcass floating. Within a few years, the great white population in False Bay collapsed. The sharks didn't get eaten to extinction. They just left. They moved to waters the orcas didn't patrol. Now scale that dynamic across every ocean on Earth for 1,000,000 years. That's not extinction by predation. That's extinction by displacement. And it's what happened to Megalodon. There's one more layer to this, and it's the one I've been holding back, because it's the part that changes how you look at the ocean itself. Modern orcas are still expanding their range. As the Arctic warms and sea ice retreats, orcas are moving into waters they couldn't previously reach. They're now regularly hunting narwhals and belugas in Arctic waters. They're being spotted in areas where local ecosystems have no experience with them. The dominant predator of the modern ocean is not settled. It's still growing, still adapting, still expanding. The line of animals that outcompeted the biggest shark that ever lived is not done. It's still writing its story. Here's the part that I think about when I'm reading the papers on this. The Megalodon extinction wasn't a single event. It played out over roughly 1,000,000 years. If you'd been a megalodon born at the beginning of that decline, you would have lived a completely normal life. Your parents would have hunted the same waters they always had. Your grandchildren would too. It's only when you zoom out across dozens of generations that the pattern becomes visible. The prey getting harder to catch, the nurseries getting more dangerous, the cousins in the next ocean over never returning from their hunting grounds. That's how extinction actually looks from the inside. Not as an apocalypse, as a slow narrowing, a shrinking of options. Until one day, the last megalodon slips into deep water somewhere off the coast of what's now Peru. And there's nobody left of its kind to notice. Nobody heard it die. There was no witness. The oceans just kept moving. The ancestors of orcas kept eating. They kept getting smarter. They kept moving. 3.6 million years later, they're the ones cruising past the coasts where megalodon teeth still wash up on the beach. If you've ever picked one up on a Carolina shoreline, you're holding a piece of a losing species. A relic of the era before intelligence took over the water. The winners are still swimming. There's a final question worth sitting with. Could Megalodon still be alive? Every few years, someone dredges up the idea that maybe, in the deepest parts of the ocean, in trenches we've barely explored, there's still a population of Megalodons hunting where nobody can see them. The Marianas Trench is nearly 7 miles deep. We've mapped more of Mars than we've mapped the deep ocean floor. The scientific answer is a hard no. Megalodon was not a deep-sea animal. Every fossil we have, every tooth, every vertebra, comes from what were shallow to moderately deep coastal waters when they were deposited. Megalodon was built for warm, productive surface ecosystems. It needed massive quantities of high-fat prey, which means whales, which means near-surface waters. The idea of a hidden population in the deep ocean is a story we tell ourselves because we don't want the biggest predator that ever lived to actually be gone. It is gone, and what killed it is not hidden. It's on nature documentaries, it's in aquarium marketing, it's in the ocean off your local coastline, hunting in packs, teaching its young, and running an ecosystem that once belonged to something much bigger. Megalodon ruled the oceans for 20 million years. Orcas have been dominant for maybe 3 or 4. Give them time. The dinosaurs ruled this planet for 165 million years. Megalodon ruled the seas for 20. Humans have been around in our current form for about 300,000. In every case, the pattern has been the same. The apex predator gets replaced, sometimes by an asteroid, sometimes by climate, sometimes by something small and smart that shows up out of nowhere and refuses to leave. Megalodon lost its ocean to a brain. The brain is still swimming, still learning, still expanding into places nothing has hunted in before. The next time you see an orca on a screen, breaching in slow motion off the coast of Alaska, or gliding past a fjord in Norway, understand what you're actually looking at. You're not looking at a whale. You're looking at the winning branch of a 4 million-year-old evolutionary war, the animal that ended the greatest predator in the history of the oceans, not by fighting it, by outthinking it, and then by doing it again to every serious competitor that came after. Megalodon didn't just go extinct. It was outmaneuvered. The winners are patient. They're methodical. They've been running the oceans unopposed for almost 4 million years now. Whatever comes for them next is going to have to be smarter still. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.